Hey, it's Drybear. I've been playing over 60 hours of the Archer Vocation, and today I want to pass on that wisdom to you who might be playing Archer, or maybe you want to start playing Archer in your Dragon's Dogma 2 playthrough. Archer is easily one of the most flexible and overpowered vocations in the game, with the ability to repeatedly strike at an enemy's weak point over and over and over. And they're also able to easily deal with any kind of enemy, whether they're airborne, on the ground, oversized, and everything in between. We'll cover the best builds to use, the best gear you can get, and where to get it, as well as the entire moveset for the vocation and some tips and tricks. Starting with the best builds, there are three main playstyles that I would look at for the Archer vocation, and you can pick and choose between the ones you like or may fit your preference based on how you want to interact with the game. At rank 1, you'll have access to Barrage Shot, Sweep Shot, Dire Arrow as your first few options, and as you get more and more discipline, you'll be able to level these up. However, at rank 2, which is almost instantaneous, you'll get this after a first few rounds of combat, you will get access to the Exploding Shot, which allows you to utilize explosive arrows, and you will eventually be able to upgrade this into the Erupting Shot, which comes at rank 5. However, this is easily one of the biggest boosts in power any vocation gets in the entire game, because once you have access to explosive arrows, you can deal with any kind of monster easily. Now, this does require you to have explosive arrows. You will need to craft them by picking up branches from wood piles or buying explosive arrows from vendors and peddlers you find along the way, and just save them for monsters that you really need to burn down. But because you do so much damage to weak points as an archer, if you're able to hit any kind of enemy with an explosive arrow direct to their weak point, you will absolutely obliterate them. I've taken out entire health bars with a single explosive arrow. And what's great about explosive arrow is not only does it do physical damage, but it also does fire damage as well. So even if you're not enchanted with a fire boon or fire affinity, if you're against an enemy that's immune to physical damage, explosive arrow will still work on them. On top of that, it is also an area of effect explosion, which means that if you hit, say, a Cyclops or a Minotaur between the eyes, not only will it deal damage to their weak point, but it also will deal damage to their horns and their tusks, so you can break those off in the process. And if you're just starting out with Archer, this is the easiest way to get incredibly overpowered early on in the game. Just pick up the Erupting Shot or the Exploding Shot at rank 2, pick that up and use explosive arrows on tough enemies, and then just use regular weak point aiming with your bow on other enemies, so you can just deal damage on that way. Very easily will take them down. Then at rank 3, you'll be able to pick up the Tarring Shot, which is a shot that uses the tarring arrows, which will tar a target and cover them in oil. And this one is incredibly strong. You can upgrade it from Tarring Shot into Incendiary Shot at rank 6, but what this does is allows you to set enemies on fire in a very small sequence of events. You can very easily hit them with Tarring Shot or the Incendiary Shot, and then hit them with any kind of fire damage, including explosive arrow, and you will set them on fire. The reason I like this combination is because you'll be able to very easily set griffins on fire. Like, the second a griffin lands, you can use Incendiary Shot and then Erupting Shot. You'll do a bunch of damage, and you'll immediately set their wings on fire, which is their weakness, topple them, and send them straight to the ground, so you can start sending arrow damage into their face for their weak point to start burning them down. Most of the other enemies that don't have a weakness to fire are easily dealt with either normal shots or the explosive arrows, so you don't have to worry about it. But the enemies that are very weak to fire, this combination allows you to take them out in a moment's notice. So that would be the first playstyle, and the one that I recommend if you're just starting out, because it gives you incredible power boosts without really any much cost to you other than just maintaining your arrow counts in your inventory. Now, you can also play an up-close Archer playstyle, and that's what we're going to talk about for playstyle number 2, that relies on Sweep Shot, which you have at rank 1, and the Cascade Shot, which you will unlock later on at a higher rank, that will allow you to shoot arrows in a shotgun spread wedge formation. And there's actually a ring that you can get as well that makes your arrows do more damage the closer you are to the target, so you can literally just play Cascade Shot or Manifold Shot as your multiple burst, play really close to the target and deal damage. However, I think that in general this kind of defeats the purpose of Archer, so if you don't want to play this way, I don't blame you, but it definitely is a way to deal damage, and very easy to do as well, especially once you pick up that Ring of Skullduggery, combined with the Ring of Proximity, ability, which we'll talk about in the gear section. Once you reach rank 6, you'll be able to pick up Whirling Arrow, and then a couple ranks after that, you'll be able to pick up Spiral Arrow. And this is actually one of my favorite playstyles, but you do have to get higher rank before you can unlock the ability to start using it. But what's great about this is a single projectile that will latch onto the target and deal repeated hits onto that target over and over and over. By default, this ability will do physical damage if you don't have any augments on your weapon or boons on your weapon, and actually has a little bit of knockback on it as well, which means that if your target flinches or doesn't have a high knockback resistance, it will constantly knock them back and keep them CC'd. On top of that, the Spiral Arrow / Whirling Arrow can stack, which means you can shoot it multiple times into the same target and they will stack on top of each other, and you'll just hear this crazy ticking of sounds that goes off of it. But that's not the limitation of Spiral Arrow as a playstyle, because you're able to stack so many small hits back to back to back to back. It makes it a perfect combination for elemental and debilitation stacking. So if you're against an enemy that has an elemental weakness, drakes are weak to ice, you can do fire against specific targets, you can do lightning to targets that are weak to it. If you know the element that they're weak to, you can have that boon applied to your weapon and then spam Spiral Arrow over and over and over, and you will actually obliterate targets that can't deal with that kind of elemental damage. And it's also great for stacking debilitations as well. So if you have fire boon on your weapon, you can easily set a Griffin on fire after a couple Spiral Arrow shots, because it will stack up the burning debilitation. You can stack up drenched, you can stack up frozen, you can stack up any of these debilitations very easily by using this multi-head attack. Now, I give a special mention to Deathly Arrow and the unlocked Maester skill Heavenly Shot. Both these abilities are really fun to use. They have really long windup, but really high damage burst in the single target. However, I think every single build playstyle we've talked about up until this point beats them out in damage output. Even just shooting normally at weak points will outdamage these abilities, but they're super fun to use, and they do have a high knockback value, which can be useful for toppling and getting enemies down to the ground, or even just getting them to flinch. But outside of those playstyles, you can just run with basic normal shots and aim directly for the weak point, and you will be able to do ridiculous amounts of damage, because again, Archer is one of the few vocations in the game that can almost unabated repeatedly strike a weak point over and over until an enemy is dead. Now let's talk gear. There's a lot of really good bows that you can get early on in the game, but the one that I'm going to recommend getting is the Myfear, which is an elven make bow, and there's two places on the map in the Vermund region that will always have it there because it's in a locked fixed loot chest. So what you can do is right when you spawn, you can go and grab it. So let's walk through. I'm zoomed in as far as I can go here because my map is fully revealed, so I'm going to try and not spoil the rest for people that care about that. But starting in Melv, which is the first settlement you'll get to, and Vermund is going to be, or Vermund Castle is going to be down here to the southeast, so you'll be able to move down here, and this will be the main city, the capital that you reach. But the place that you can find two Myfears is going to be the Forgotten Tunnel and the Darkhold Cave entrance. So if you head west out of this area from Vermund, or Vermund, the main capital, and you move northwest here across the water towards the Sacred Arbor, you'll head over and find the Darkhold Cave and Forgotten Tunnels. A little bit north from here, the Elven Land is up there, but you're looking for the Forgotten Tunnel here, which is going to be just south of the Sacred Arbor, and it's over the water, past the water area of the Vermont area, next to like Rain Shelter and Malachite Forest. So inside of Forgotten Tunnel, there will be a Myfear in here for free, and then also over here in the Darkhold Cave, in the building right before the campsite. So if you come here and go to this campsite, there's going to be a building right here that you enter into, and it will always have a Myfear on the table that you can pick up and use. And this is a very high damage mid-game weapon that you can just walk to and pick up like at level 1 right from the start, and then you can use it, upgrade it. It has a nice knockback base value as well, and this weapon will carry you basically through mid-game until you start getting access to some of the mid-game, late-game weapons that outscale it. One of my favorites is the Revenant's Whale. You can get this about about the end of mid game, and it's super strong, especially once maxed out. I recommend just going for pure damage on it with either the Batali scaling or even the Dwarven scaling to get some bonus on that, but it's incredibly powerful. But you can also use any of the dragon weapons like Dragon's Blink or Dragon's Rancor. Those are both fine. If you can find the Hydra Husk from the elves, that's also a good pickup with good stat scaling on it as well. When it comes to armor, you want to aim for high magic defense and knockdown resistance. As an archer, you get knocked down very easily and you will stay down for a long time. In fact, you will get stun locked if enemies get in melee range and you're not careful about it, or if you're near a large monster that stumbles or tremors the ground, you will get stun locked for long periods of time. So getting knockback resistance is super good, and you want to aim at as high magic defense as you can, because that most of the time, if you're playing well, you're mostly going to be hitting by large AoE effects that do a bunch of damage to you, and you want to avoid dying to those. For early game jewelry, one of the best rings you can get is Ring of Aggression. I believe this is available from a vendor in Melve, like on the intro sequence of the game. You can pick up one of these. It gives you a small boost to strength, which is useful. It gives you a little bit more damage there. It can super nice. You can also find the Ring of Brawn in a few places in the early game that give you more strength the less you're carrying. But this will just be for starting out. So if you have things like Exaltation for extra HP or carry weight, the accrual can be really nice for even the medium out, or Triumph can be good too. Those are all really good for early on in the game. But you will want to pick up these two rings that I'll show you how to get. First one is the Ring of Skullduggery, and what this ring does is it increases the damage that you deal when you're attacking enemies from behind, and you can stack this with dealing damage to the weak point as well, which gives you a big bonus to dealing damage to targets. And if you have a good fighter with you that can draw aggro, or you can pull enemies away from you, you can get bonus from this ring pretty easily. And I think the fastest way to get this is from the Jadeite Orb quest. So just head over to the border checkpoint rest town and talk to the Beastren vendor that's looking for the Jadeite Orb. You'll find the Jadeite Orb at Ibrahim's scrap shop, and there will be another vendor that looks for the orb as well. And you can actually forge it if you want, but turn it into the human vendor, and you'll be able to pick up the Ring of Skullduggery right away. And the other ring you'll want to look at is the Ring of Proximity, and this is actually a reward from the Trial of Archery quest. This is how you meet the Archery Maester to unlock the Heavenly Shot Arrow ability, but you want to pick this up, and you get it when you complete the Trial of Archery quest, which starts right here in the Vernworth Castle vendor area. If you go to the weapons vendor, there will be an elf with a bow on his back standing in front of it. When you talk to him, it starts the Trial of Archery quest line. Follow this quest line all the way to the end, and you will be able to unlock the Ring of Proximity as well as meet the Archery Maester to get to the secret abilities that you can learn. Next, let's talk about moveset and general uses for the Vocation that you can use while in combat. Keep in mind that when you are just pressing the loose button, which is, if you're on PlayStation controls, it's square, but I think just left click for PC as well. When you're using the loose, it'll just aim in the direction that you're moving and shoot. However, if you don't scope in, this will auto aim to targets, which means that if you're up against a target that's flying, you can very easily track them with the loose ability and use that to kind of keep and hit them easily. So there's like a harpy that's flying around casting a spell or trying to look up for a dive bomb on you. If it's a gore harpy, you can very easily just use this auto aim version to deal damage to them. But keep in mind that if you're not scoped in, the shots from this normal loose attack will do slightly less damage and less knockback as well. So you do, in general purpose, want to be scoping in with the reticle and using this as much as possible, because it does increase your damage output and it increases your knockdown as well. When you're not scoped in, you can also do a front kick normally, which is this kind of flip kick. When you get the core skill, you can also do a double dive on this if there's an enemy in target range. You can, if you're sprinting and you press the triangle for front kick, you'll jump off of them. This is good for creating space to keep them off of you and get distance on them, and also doing a little bit of damage in the process. If you're sprinting and loose, you'll do a slide and then immediately fire a shot that has higher damage than normal shot and higher knockback as well. And this is a super useful ability. You can use this to deal bonus damage to a target, but also this slide that you have, if you sprint and loose, this slide has some dodge properties to it, which means that if there's an enemy that like tracks on top of you, the slide actually avoids some tracking. So if you see an enemy like a goblin or a hobgoblin or a big Saurian looking for a big lunge jump attack on you, or especially like a skeleton lord with a heavy charge attack, attack, you can use this slide to slide left or right, or slide underneath them if they're leaping and avoid the damage from that shot. So it's super useful to move around this way, and it also gives you a nice little bonus shot at the end with elevated knockback and elevated damage, which you can use for that. So between the slide avoiding attacks or doing a jump kick attack to interrupt lunges and other attacks like that, you can keep people from getting in range with you and keep distance on them to constantly be shooting them and just use that to interrupt them. But your bread and butter for Archer is going to be using the scope in, so using your right bumper on controller or your right click on PC and just aiming in and aiming for weak points. This will always be your highest damage output, and it's very easy, doesn't cost any stamina, and you can just keep shooting this way. And especially if you have any augments or boons on you, you can very easily use this to take targets down by hitting them in the head. Keep in mind that if you hit a weak point, it has tons of bonus effects in this game. If you sever a tail off a Saurian, it will flinch them. If you're able to do enough damage to a weak point on a Cyclops or a Minotaur or even an Ogre, it will flinch them or knock them down or topple them. You can cause them to stagger backwards if you hit them in the weak point, or you can cause them to interrupt their spell casting, especially on Drakes. You can interrupt them if you do enough damage to their weak point. So there's tons of ways you can use this. And even on normal enemies, if you hit them in the head, even like just hitting them in the head over their shield if they're blocking, you'll be able to knock them back, stagger them, cause them to fall to the ground, or take a knee if they're humanoid like a bandit. You'll be able to knock them that way. You can blow off the heads of undead. Just shoot them in the head or shoot them in the weak point over and over, and you'll be able to do ridiculous damage with this process. And that's what I've got for you today. I don't want this video to be any longer than it already is. Hopefully this is a good intro and wisdom passing for the Archer Vocation, and I hope you're enjoying the game. Let me know what your Archer tips are down below in the comments. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.